Yellow. Now, if you were to take a binary stance, the obvious answer is that PEDs are bad, steroids are bad, and they should not be used because they are cheating, of course. In this way, of course, I don't promote the use of them in any sense, but at the same time, I understand reality is far more complicated than a binary answer, and the truth usually lies somewhere as a shade of gray. With that said, let me give you an analogy. If you've ever played a game, say like an FPS game, where there are no real rules, or even if there are, even if you're not supposed to do something, there's no enforcement of the rule. There's no way to stop people from, say, map hacking, right? Now, if one person starts doing this, if one person starts using auto-aim, starts using a map hack, what's the natural progression of that? To be competitive, other people are going to be doing the same. That's just the natural progression, and if there is no enforcement of the rules, eventually, that's all the game will be. And will that be a very fun game to play? Likely not. It just becomes a destroyed game. But at the end of the day, even in that context, an FPS, a video game, a computer game, if there are no rules being enforced, innately, it's as if there are no rules. Enforcement of the rule is what makes the rule. Otherwise, abuse is inevitable. Now, take this for example. You watch a fighter train so very hard every day, and at the same time your gym is not doing too well, and if you have another fighter come back, losing because he lost to someone who's buffed up on substances, has an unfair advantage chemically, and you know this person that you've grown to like, that you've been working so hard to help build, you've been on his team for so long, you know that if you send him out there, he's just gonna get mauled and destroyed, not even because of a skill advantage. You know, in your heart, you know everything about this person, aside from the physical ability, because they're not taking any substances, is superior to that fighter's, but it doesn't matter, because the strength advantage that person has achieved chemically steamroll whatever this person has worked on. And what could be the result of that? Because it was so easy, most people, we have a tendency of making assumptions based upon the surface, and so if you see all these fighters just getting steamrolled by these other fighters who are just chemically jacked up, in that part of the world where there is no rule enforced, what's going to happen if you just keep sending people out and they get steamrolled? Your gym's brand is going to look very bad, because at that point, people are going to make assumptions about the quality of training you give them at first glance. They might not take a deeper look as to why this is happening. And say if you are in like a harsher part of the world where it's just harder to attain resources in the first place, all of a sudden, it becomes very tempting to give this to your fighter yourself. Not just to preserve your own brand, but because you care about this person and because you at least want to give them a fighting chance. You don't want this person to get steamrolled too, right? Because at the end of the day, even though this becomes a prevalent problem in a video game, in this situation, there's real physical repercussions. Thus, the incentive to make the playing field a bit more level is so much greater, right? If there is no way to enforce the rule, it's as if the rules don't exist anymore. And in that sense, is it moral to send someone out in a harsher part of the world where your gym might even make it because the brand is failing, because all these are smashing you? Is it moral to allow the person you're working with to just go out there without a substance themselves? Even if it wasn't about the gym's brand, you're watching this person grow with you. You've worked so hard, you've developed a connection with this person. He's not just someone you work with, at that point he's a friend. Do you want to see this person just get smashed? Not even because of a skill difference. The gym part is bad enough, isn't it? The gym part is bad enough. But is it moral to just push him out there and say, okay, go ahead and do it? He can't even defend himself because there's such a huge advantage chemically. At that point, even though steroids are wrong, and even though they should not be used, it doesn't make sense, does it? It's almost more immoral in that context where the rules are not enforced to not do what everyone else is doing. Because not only do you lose a competitive advantage altogether, the same one they're abusing, but more so than that, it's not a video game. There's real physical repercussions, there's real threat, a real danger. And this is a very common occurrence throughout other parts of the world where there isn't as stringent testing for this kind of stuff. If you can't enforce a rule, it's as if the rule doesn't exist. That's exactly the same throughout all facets of life. There's always going to be someone who abuses a form of power because it makes their life more convenient. It helps them get ahead in life. Not just in games, but in life, people do this. And this is why you need enforcement of rules. Because if you don't have it, if you don't have an enforcement of rules, the same way in video games, it becomes rampant with auto-aim and map hackers. The same way, performance enhancers become the norm. If you can't enforce the rule, people in that moment, even if that person was a good person, on a bad day, maybe they're hurt, maybe they were bullied too much, hurt people from there will hurt other people, and this reality has a tendency of propagating suffering. Every one of us, at a low point in our life, would have had incentive to abuse power. And if that is true, that one slip could have become addictive. That foot in the door could have a snowball in a direction that on the surface may not be right. But because there is no enforcement of the rule, everyone else is doing it, I just want to give myself a level playing field. This is true regardless of arena. If there is no enforcement of the rule does not exist. And we see this not just in other people, but we ourselves have crossed a line, not even because you're a bad person, but we all have low points, and that one low point is enough to have us step past a line where we too may abuse power. We've all had some instance like this in our lives at some point in time. Nobody is perfect. But what helps mitigate that is the enforcement of the rule. The awareness of this and the enforcement of the rule is what mitigates people walking past a certain line. Whether it be out in the world before us or even within ourselves, having boundaries, it's all the same. To that end, thank you all for watching. Until next time, peace.